A warm good afternoon to everybody and welcome to our next episode of the COVID Economy. My name's Paul. I'll be hosting this meeting in lieu of Jason, who's facing a few technical difficulties at the moment, so he might not be able to make it today. With me here today I have Damir Bekbulat, who is in corporate advisory at Salter Brothers. Damir, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure thing. So I'm Damir. I actually recently graduated from Monash. I graduated in semester 1 of this year, and I've taken up a full-time role, full-time analyst role at Salter Brothers Capital. Salter Brothers Capital is essentially, it's a new corporate advisory team within the bigger Salter Brothers Group. Salter Brothers Group usually does investing in hotels and private equity, but now they're trying to transition, or not transition, expand their corporate advisory team a little bit more. So I've just been working that for the last 3-4 months now.
Thanks, Damir. So, as with all TCE broadcasts, we welcome questions from students, and your questions will actually be what guides our talk today. So, if you have any questions for Damir, and I think Damir would have plenty of wonderful stories to tell you, please leave them down in the chat. So, Damir was actually a student of mine a couple of years ago. When was it? Do you remember? 2017, 2018?
18, yeah, 18.
18, yeah, in modeling and finance.
Modeling and finance. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's in a very similar situation. Well, not in a similar situation, but he was in a similar situation to what you guys might find yourself in maybe 1 or 2 years' time. So certainly, if you have any questions for Damir about how he's managed to score his very good job, or any other questions about the transition from uni life to work life, please definitely share them in the chat, and we'll get round to discussing some of those questions as we start talking more about Damir and what he's doing. Okay. All right, so welcoming any questions in the chat. Please feel free to interrupt with questions at any time. So Damir, I just wanted to ask you, would you be able to tell us a little bit about what exactly corporate advisory is? Because I think that for a lot of finance graduates, when I speak with them, they tend to want to go into management consulting or into investment banking or one of those sort of more popular careers. We don't hear much about corporate advisory. So would you be able to tell us a little bit about sort of what you do and what exactly it is, Damir?
Yeah, sure. So corporate advisory your job kind of differs at different levels. So at the analyst level, what my job is essentially analyze a lot of financial data and break really complex things down into simple manners. And essentially corporate advisory as a sector is essentially investment banking, but for mid-market companies. So a lot of our clients are mid-market ASX listed clients. They're not in the ASX 200 or in the ASX 100 or something. They might be in the All Ordinaries Index, which is essentially the top 500 companies. And they might be looking to break into the ASX 200 or ASX 100 in the next 3 to 4 years. And our job is to advise them on their current issues. Maybe they want to do a few mergers or acquisitions. So we advise them on that. And, we kind of always have the end goal in mind. So for example, if we have a client who is looking to break into the ASX 200, we look at what requirements they need. For example, like what market cap they need or free floating market cap. And we kind of always have those goals at the back of our minds as we advise them.
So it sounds a lot like you do sort of a mixture of traditional investment banking stuff in the sense of doing M&A transactions, as well as a bit of management consulting in the sense that you're advising clients on how to run their business and how to develop their business. Would that be an accurate sort of representation?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Yeah. So would you agree that a lot of these roles in finance, even though they have sort of fancy names, that they're all fundamentally doing very much the same thing, which is sort of this idea of value analysis and how you can add value to companies in terms of management?
Essentially, yeah. I guess I've had experiences in just retail banking, institutional banking, private equity, investment banking / corporate advisory. And I would say pretty much yes. In a way, yes. Investment banking and private equity are very similar in that, you're trying to add value to a client or your investment. So yeah, in a lot of ways they do overlap. Yes.
Fantastic. And what sort of, if you're a uni student or you're advising a uni student who wants to go into these sorts of careers where they're doing investment banking or corporate advisory or sort of this consulting field, what are some of the skills that you think students should be looking at acquiring, both in terms of their technical skills as well as their, non-technical or social skills?
Hmm. So I think first and foremost, doing well at uni is very important. For me, it is always a priority to know the content very well and study very hard. I think that uni is great in teaching you to, just like in my job, breaking down complex things into simple manners, even if it is just for your own benefit. So it's kind of like, by studying hard and by trying to do well at university, it really teaches you some really good life skills. So in terms of that, that's pretty important. In terms of the technical skills, well, for investment banking, the interview process is quite long, and they do ask a lot of technical questions. But the good thing is that a lot of those technical questions have been asked 100 times before and will get asked 100 times after your interview. So so a lot of them have actually been documented online. So when I was doing recruitment, I just looked online. What are the 100 most commonly asked investment banking questions? And in a way, you can rote learn them, but I think actually trying to understand what is going on, maybe even doing a model by yourself, is very beneficial. In terms of the social skills, it's one of those things that you can't really teach yourself, and it's kind of like a byproduct of going to uni. So one of my mentors, the very first piece of advice he gave me was, do not underestimate how important the relationships you form at uni are. He said, I'd much rather see you get an okay mark, but have fun, go to balls, make friends, get drunk one night or many nights, rather than just sit in your room and study all day. Because I'm telling you right now that is a lot more important than, knowing how to do a DCF.
Oh no, I completely agree. I was talking to one of my friends who I've known for a long time back in uni, and he works in trading now. And I sort of asked him, well, what's the most important thing that you learned how to do at uni? And he's like, oh, it's by far learning how to drink, because that's part and parcel of any corporate job, really, is that you have to go for beers after work, and that's where deals are made. So he says that if you don't know how to drink, then you're just unfortunately going to be missing out on a lot of these opportunities. So I definitely hear where you're coming from there. So just a reminder to everyone once again that if you have any questions for Damir, please let us know down in the chat. So I think Georgina's just opened, well, not opened, but she's just reminded everyone that if at any time you have any questions that you'd like me to pass on to Damir, please let me know as we talk about his role in corporate advisory. All right, Damir. So given that, we talked about some of what you do in corporate advisory and some of the most important skills that you have, would you be able to talk to us a little bit about sort of how your journey from uni to Salter Brothers actually went? Did you have any other internships? Were you considering working in other places? Sort of what, I guess maybe start off when you first got into uni. Why did you choose to do, I think you did commerce and science, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. So why did you choose to do commerce and science, and sort of what were your aspirations, and how did you go onto that journey and somehow end up in the position that you are in right now? Was it linear, or did you take a lot of different branches, and how did you find your way?
Yeah. So I guess anyone who knows me very well will know that I kind of struggled a lot in the first 2 years of uni in terms of understanding what I actually want to do. So I actually went into uni thinking that, I'll get into med school straight after uni and become a doctor in the end.
Yeah.
Doing medicine and treating people is kind of what I wanted to do since I was 6 years old, because I came from a medical family. Like, we've got doctors, nurses, pharmacists everywhere in our family. I'm actually the first one who's not in health.
I think you mentioned this to me at one point, actually.
Yeah. So I kind of, my first 2 years of uni were kind of just, end goal is medicine. This is what I want to do. And And the reason why I decided to do commerce is because my sister followed that path, and she said, look, if you don't get into medicine, just do commerce. It takes an extra year at uni, which you will not regret, and you have a great fallback as well. And I kind of thought, right, screw it, why not?
Yeah.
And then, so first year of uni went by, and then I didn't really enjoy any of my commerce subjects. And then with my second year, I undertook the Introduction to Finance by Jason. And that first unit was just, it was just amazing, because everything that Jason said kind of just made sense to me. Honestly, it kind of felt like it was a language that I could already speak. And I thought, hang on, here I am, like, busting my balls trying to get into medicine, and I don't actually understand why I want to do this. But but then I was in the finance lecture, and I wanted it to go on for longer, because everything Jason was saying, I just understood, and it made so much like clear sense. I was like, hang on, this is kind of like a moment where I was like, okay, maybe medicine isn't for me. But I still try to get in. I applied for medical schools still, and just said, okay, well, finance can just be my major for commerce. Medicine is still number one, but fallback will be finance. And then, I don't know, kind of as years went by, as I did Corp Fi 1, then I did Corp Fi 2, did modeling with you, Paul. It just made sense to me. And I thought, hang on, I'm really enjoying this. Why the hell do I want to do medicine? The only reason that I'm doing it is because I thought to myself, this is what you want to do, and this is what you must do.
I could tell a lot of students have that mindset.
Yeah. Definitely. And then the funny thing is that I actually did sit the GAMSAT afterwards, and then luckily I ended up getting a really good score, good enough to kind of bypass the interview process for some unis. And I wasn't excited by that at all. So I thought, no, finance is what I want to do.
Yeah.
And this was in my third year now. Yeah. So this is my third year. And then that's when I kind of decided to, okay, maybe I should apply for internships, because, it's kind of the thing that I've been told throughout my degree, but I just didn't really listen. So I started applying to internships. But the thing is that because no one in my family was really into business at all, and B, I hadn't really paid attention much to my commerce career, I didn't really follow the guidelines of applying to internships and jobs. So my resume was like 5 pages long. I included everything that I ever did since I was like born. And
it's like I was a newspaper guy when I was 11 years old.
So I kind of just, I didn't follow any of the conventions. So naturally, in my like 30 applications, I didn't hear back from anyone. But so the key thing I learned from there was that just do your research, keep it simple. And before you don't just go head first into something, understand why you want to do it, and, kind of look at what the conventions are. It only takes like 10 minutes to Google this stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, after like 30, 40 rejections, I decided to just pick up the phone and cold call companies, because at the end of the day, these big companies like the Big Four and, the Big Four banks, they work in tiny offices, and every team works in a tiny office. Every office is like 30, 40 people big. So it doesn't really matter, you're still getting a good experience, whether it be inside of a big firm or a small firm. So I decided to just pick up the phone, start cold calling firms, said, hello, my name is Damir. As part of my university degree, I need to complete an internship experience. I was wondering if you guys are looking to, for any interns right now. And, getting past reception was really hard. So of like the 40, 50 places that I called, I only really got past reception, like I would say 20, 30% of the time. And then even when I did get past reception, partners didn't really care. I got hung up on mid-sentence a few times, and that happens. Like, screw it. But luckily, Salter Brothers was one of the 3 places that said, come in for an interview. Like, there's always some work to do. why not? So I came in, I interviewed with them. They kind of said, okay, you know, what do you like about uni? What can you bring to us? X, Y, Z. And then they decided to offer me a 6-week internship. So I did that
Fantastic.
6-week
Yeah.
internship. Yeah, it was a great experience because I was working alongside the investment director for their private equity fund. So I was learning a lot directly from him, even just chatting to him when we were getting coffee. And yeah, so I did that 6-week internship, and then they offered me a part-time role there. And as between the period of getting the offer for the internship and actually doing the internship, I decided to call up some of the places that I had been rejected from and just ask for feedback, say, you know, how could I have improved in my interview? You know, why did I not get chosen? Why did you pick other candidates? And I talked to the human resources representative from ANZ, and she said, look, like, your interview was great. We liked you, just the other candidates did better in the case study. And I was like, yep, that's all good. And, you know, this feedback session went on for like 20, 30 minutes. And I was really happy that she actually took the time out of her day to do that for me. And then she said, look, actually, every year someone drops out, you know, they might get another internship opportunity and they just drop out of the program. So if that does happen, we'll let you know. And sure enough, in the middle of my internship at Salter Brothers, she gives me a call and she said, hey, someone dropped out. Do you want to come on? In a few weeks' time. And I said, yeah, of course, you know, I'm finishing this internship up in a few weeks and I'll be more than happy to come on for 8 weeks. So then I did that internship at ANZ, and then I started working part-time at Salter Brothers. And then as I kind of was working at Salter Brothers, I realized, I was talking to my boss, you know, every day, and he said, look, I think that you should give investment banking a shot, apply to the investment banking internships, because he did investment banking before, and he said this is the environment where you learn the most in corporate finance. So that year I had a look, you know, I had a look into what investment banking actually was, what to do in the internship applications. And so I submitted all my applications, had a few interviews. They all happened in the same week because all the investment banks make that agreement of we're not allowed to touch the applicants until X date. After the interview, they take you out to dinner to see, you know, how you interact with everyone there. Luckily enough, UBS offered me a role that summer, and then I took up that role. Still worked at Salter Brothers part-time, and then did the internship at UBS for 10 weeks. And that was the most intense 10 weeks of my life, because I was just so shocked at how hard these people work and how passionate they are about their jobs and doing what is right for their clients. And after the internship at UBS, Salter Brothers said, look, we're actually opening up a new corporate advisory firm, or a corporate advisory team. We have, you know, 2 managing directors come on. One of them notably spent 15 years in investment banking at Macquarie Capital. And I thought it was a really good opportunity for me to work alongside 2 highly experienced managing directors who've had a lot of deal experience. And I don't think you come across those opportunities very often, whereby first year out of uni, you're working alongside such well-regarded people. And so that was pretty much my journey there.
No, that sounds really interesting, Damir. And I think there's a lot that we can, I know that it's a sort of a long story. There's a lot that we can unpack in it that I think would be really valuable. No, it's fantastic that you told that story, because I think the story that you're telling mirrors a lot of other success stories that I've heard. Like when I talk to a lot of my own past students or my colleagues who I consider to be either successful or they've had great successes in that sort of transitionary period from uni to work, a lot of them mention this idea of having to be brave and having to put yourself out there. Like, I think that everybody applies for sort of the same things, right? Everyone applies with the big four financial services firms. Everyone applies with the big four banks and maybe a few investment banks through their sort of standard yearly recruitment process. But I think that there are a lot of smaller firms that don't follow that sort of same structure. And a lot of them probably wouldn't have even thought about perhaps taking on an intern or taking on a grad. And I was talking to some of my friends, and they're saying, yeah, the firm where I worked at was not me, but my friend worked at was this small funds management firm, and they only had like 10 or 11 people, and they never even thought about bringing on an intern. But he just, so same as you, he wrote them a few emails, sent his resume in, said sort of he's always wanted to be in the funds management industry, and he just wants to come in and see what they're about and do an internship. And yeah, and he got an internship over summer, and actually that continued on as sort of a part-time casual position as he finished off his degree. So I think there's a lot of merit in cold calling and sort of taking on that opportunity. Did you find that nerve-wracking? Sort of, how was it the first time you picked up the phone and sort of said, hi, I'm Damir, would you like to give me a job? How did that feel? And sort of how did you get over that initial feeling of this is a bit awkward sort of feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. It was so awkward, and my heart was just racing in that first call. I think from memory, I'm pretty sure I actually wrote down a script. Like I said,
All right.
yeah, like I called my friend and I said, look, I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. Can I just give you a call? You pick up as though you are, as though you are this place. And he's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then, I did that, and I recorded exactly what I said because I was really happy with the way that I talked to my friend. And then when I called the place up, I said that exactly, line by line, and they can't tell because they're over the phone. And they just said, no, we don't do that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Well, dealing with rejection is a skill.
Yeah, but at the same time, one of my early mentors, he said, being rejected from a job or an internship is not a reflection of you at all. He was like, trust me, there have been plenty of instances whereby people reject someone and then they go on to regret it later on, or even worse, they take someone on and then they regret it and then they regret it. He's like, look, it's not a reflection of you at all. So just keep cold calling. Doesn't really matter if they say no, they say no. You can have 99 no's, but it just takes one yes and you have a fantastic job. Like that's
for sure.
So definitely a lot of merit in cold calling. I agree with you there.
Yeah. And the other thing that I thought was even perhaps just as surprising as the cold calling, but I think just as valuable, was your decision to call back and get feedback from ANZ. Because I actually have one of my friends who I went to uni with is doing HR. So she's an HR manager now at PwC. And I always ask her, because I want to give advice to my students, particularly third year students, about how they can sort of navigate that transition from uni to work. And I ask her, what's the most important thing in your opinion as an HR professional for students to know when they're trying to enter the workplace? And she said something which I think sort of resonates with your story, which is to make yourself known. Because she says, we get thousands of applicants every cycle, and 99.9% of those applicants are just numbers on a sheet. And a lot of the times they actually give out internships or even grad opportunities to just people that they remember. So for example, like I think what happened with you at ANZ. So if someone drops out, if someone decides to go somewhere else, if someone decides they're not a good fit, they don't really want to go there anymore, or whatever might happen, you've just got a much greater chance of them giving you a call as opposed to the other, 20,000 people that they could have contacted. And I guess it shows great initiative. They want someone on board who would do that.
And I think the reality is that, a lot of those places, when you cold call, a lot of those places will say no. And when you ask for feedback, in the hopes that someone drops out and they'll take you on, like that won't happen. But as I've said before, like it's a numbers game. You can have 99 no's, but it just takes one yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And what about your aspirations to become a doctor? Are you completely shelved those, or are you going to come back to them? Or
my parents aren't too happy because they were
really
hoping to. Yeah, they were really hoping to keep health inside of the family.
Yeah.
But that being
Yeah.
said, they ask me plenty of accounting questions and finance questions all the time.
Oh, there you
So,
go.
yeah.
Well,
But
you can
my
help them
aspirations,
with their taxes.
yeah. Oh God. Yeah. But no, my aspirations to be a doctor have kind of just disappeared. I think
Yeah.
finance is what I'm kind of passionate about. In a way, medicine and corporate advisory are similar in that you're helping someone, you're helping
Yeah.
someone overcome a problem,
Yeah.
and you're prescribing with them with the best possible advice that you can with the information that you have on hand, and
Mm.
then you have their best interests at heart. So
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I don't know if I ever told you, Damir, but I actually went to med school. So
yeah, right.
yeah. So I sympathize with your story a lot. Everything from sort of everything from wanting to go to med school as sort of a younger student to even your parents being disappointed. I can say that I know mine say that they're not, but every time that someone tells me, oh, my kid got into med, you can see it. So I certainly empathize with those stories, and I think something that a lot of that I try to communicate to a lot of people, particularly to students of finance, is that in any, if not most jobs, your role really is to provide advice. That's the difference between being a tradie and being a professional, where if you go into a trade, you go into plumbing, or you're an electrician, a carpenter, you produce physical goods, or you could be, a technician in a factory producing a good. Your product is finished goods, but really, as a professional, whether you're an engineer or whether you're in finance, even if you're a mathematician or a scientist or a doctor, your your end product is advice. Your end product is your expertise
Right.
that people value, and they pay you for that. So I think it's really interesting that you brought that up, that there's this similarity between a career in medicine and a career in corporate advisory, where you're just giving people advice in terms of how to solve their problems. And I think that relates perfectly to even what I do in teaching, where
Yeah, exactly.
I give advice to people as well. Very different sort of advice, I presume, but I think that's something to sort of keep in mind, especially I think as students think about everyone watching here today thinks about transitioning to the workforce. So that's really what your goal is going to be. So you have to put yourself in the best position possible to be able to give that advice and present yourself as an expert in the field that you purport to be an expert in.
Yeah,
We've
absolutely.
actually, yeah, fantastic. Well, we've actually got a couple of questions here that we've received in the chat that I just wanted to relay to you,
Yep.
Damir, and hopefully we can talk a little about these. The first question we have here from Sonia is, what is something you've gained from uni apart from subject knowledge that's translated into your current job?
Something that I've gained from uni apart from my subject knowledge. I think, yeah, as I said before, it's mainly it's that skill to be able to explain very complex things in a very simple manner. So, and I can't emphasize enough as to how important that is. I don't think I've mentioned this, but I used to do VC tutoring as well, and that's where that skill really came in handy. Being able to explain maths to people who don't really necessarily understand maths too easily. In many ways, my job is exactly that. So I'm given a bunch of data, and I'm given a task that is pretty complicated. And I think to myself, okay, hang on. Yes, I have the solution, but if you show this solution to someone, they won't understand it because they haven't gone through the process of getting to that solution. So then your job, in a way, is to present that solution in a way that is very simple and in a way that helps them see how you went through that process. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, that certainly makes sense, and it's one of the reasons why I always encourage students to work in teams, especially studying together. I always found that
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
great way of developing your communication
absolutely.
skills. Yeah, because I think one of the issues about uni is that it can be really easy to just get stuck into your books and sort of just make your GPA or your WAM the whole center of attention, and you sort of have this uni experience where all that matters is you just got to study really hard by yourself, learn all the material, get a good WAM, and sort of at the end of it you realize, hang on, I didn't make any friends, I didn't really develop any skills outside of all of this material I learned, which I've probably already forgotten. So
Yeah. Yeah.
no, so I completely agree. Well, do you think that there's in your experience anyway, do you think that there's any real way from the perspective of a student who might not be very good at communicating or who might not have a lot of experience in talking to people to develop those skills, knowing that some people already have an inherent advantage from being able to command a room and sort of communicate well? How does someone who's a bit more introverted or shy or sort of not as out there, how do they get better at doing these sorts of things?
Yeah. So I was actually, I still am a little bit shy. And when I first entered into uni, I was extremely shy. I don't think I had like many friends who were outside of my school friends at uni. And I was really told that, at uni is a great place to, just start meeting more people outside of school. So I thought, okay, hang on, screw it. I feel as though in your first year, everyone is very keen to make new friends. So I kind of just went along to all the different parties that BCSS and the Arts Committee and Science Committee host. So I just went along with my school friends. I just met their friends, and then from that I got introduced to their friends and then their friends. So it's one of those things, whereby just going out with your friends and having them introduce you to other friends. I feel that it sounds a little bit silly, but that actually helps you, enhance your communication skills a lot. And understand people and, have a conversation and know how to keep a conversation going and interesting. Yeah.
No, that sounds like wonderful advice. I completely agree. There's actually an interesting comment here. I'm not sure if this is a question or a bit of a comment from Hao Chan, who says, I'm also applying for an internship recently and I've been rejected for 10 times already. So did you have any advice for someone who's in that sort of position and they might have started applying and they've gotten a couple of rejections and they want to improve? I think something you mentioned before was that your first resume was like 5 pages long with all of your life's achievements in it, including, mowing your neighbor's lawn when you were 12 years old. How do you transition from sort of this this mentality where you want to show off all of your achievements to presenting yourself as someone that people actually want to work with and someone that they should consider hiring? Sort of how did you manage to navigate that?
Right. So in terms of the what to do, I think there are a few things. First thing is, as I've said before, try to get feedback. Email the HR representative who may have interviewed you or who would have, who represents the firm, because I feel as though they are usually the type of people who are more than happy to give feedback back to you, because they understand that, it's your first time applying to a job or an internship. It's a little bit hard to navigate for some people, especially people who, like me, don't come from a business background. My parents went to uni and then they were set up with a job by the uni straight away. And yeah, I guess the other piece of advice is just because, all those applications have closed, that those companies are not the only companies that are in Melbourne or in Australia, right? So cold calling is an amazing tool. And it actually kind of relates to what I was talking about before with communication skills. It improves your communication skills because in 30 seconds, you have to tell someone what your story is and why they should give you a chance, right? And at first, you might need to write a script for that, but then it kind of comes naturally after that. So don't be afraid to cold call, is my advice. Just because you got rejected 10 times, it doesn't matter. Personally, I've been rejected, I think, more than like 80 times. But like I said,
so have I.
It only takes one yes. That's all that it takes. So that's kind of my advice. And in terms of the resume, Google. That's probably the best advice that I can give, because I thought to myself, hang on, I'm probably not doing something right. I Googled it, and I found that, hang on, my resume is actually just not following any of the conventions at all. And
Yep.
I actually sent my resume to a friend of mine as well. So having friends review your resume is pretty handy.
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
friend, he had already done an investment banking internship. And at that point, I didn't even know what investment banking was. But you know, he was able to, he went through my resume and said, remove this, remove this, remove this, this crap, don't do this, write this. So yeah, have your friends review your resume. And
Yeah.
if you're looking for a template, I'm pretty sure that the Corporate Finance Institute, so just Google that, they have an investment banking resume template. I think that template isn't just for investment banking, it can be used for across every single field. It's literally just a one-page document, and it helps summarize your story in a very neat way. That's the resume that I used when I was applying
Yeah.
after my internship at ANZ and Salter Brothers.
No, that sounds like fantastic advice. Again, just a reminder to our audience that if you have any questions you'd like me to pass on to Damir, or if there's anything you'd like to talk to Damir about, please just let us know in the chat. Or if there's any topics that that you want us to cover in sort of the 10 minutes or so that we have, just under 10 minutes or so that we have remaining. I think that what Damir's been able to talk about so far and to tell us about has been really insightful. So if you have any questions, please just post them below, or even unmute your microphone and ask us in person. I'm sure that one of the
Paul,
things that go on.
I was just going to ask a question for you. How come? What was your story behind, wanting to go out of med school into finance and
Interesting.
econometrics?
Okay. I didn't expect to be answering questions. I thought I was the one asking, but no. That's interestingly. This is a question that I answer differently every time I get it, and every interviewer that I've ever been to has asked me this exact same question. I don't even remember an interview that has not asked me this question. So if I were to answer sort of candidly and as honestly as I could, there are a few reasons. The first reason is that when I was in med school, my favorite subject was health economics and population health and epidemiology. And I guess something that never really struck a chord with me about the way that medicine is taught is that I've always been a big believer in institutional solutions to problems, not individual solutions to problems. In the sense that I don't think that like on some very small level, of course, you know, if you're sick and you need immediate acute treatment for your sickness, you know, then yes, that's a treatment that's required. But I think that there's a lack of perspective about the broader issues. For example, you know, if someone comes in and they've just been in a car accident and you treat them for their injuries, then I think there's a very direct sort of, okay, this is what needs to happen. They're injured. We need to treat them. But I think the broader question is, okay, well, why are they in a car accident in the first place? Is there anything that we can do to minimize, you know, the chances of someone getting into a car accident? Right. I think those are the sorts of questions that we didn't talk enough about. And I found myself becoming more and more interested in answering policy questions as opposed to understanding the science. I've always been sort of more of a social science person as opposed to a hard science person. I like to sort of ponder and think about a lot of these very philosophical and data-driven sometimes issues. So that was when I decided I'd be better off doing an economics degree and sort of thinking about public policy and those sorts of things. So that's how I transferred over to commerce. I did econometrics, economics, finance, those sorts of fields. And yeah, like with your story, I came to love those fields for much more than sort of the initial reasons that I started doing them. One of the things that I really enjoyed about finance, I don't think you brought this up, but one of the things that I really enjoyed about finance was that it really changed the way that I thought about the world and money and
Absolutely.
how to make money and how to grow money. And I think something I realized was that my vision of sort of the way that you make a lot of money is by working hard is actually completely untrue. And the second thing I studied as well was that I read a paper which actually talked about the determinants of income inequality at retirement. And what that paper said was that about 30 to 40% of your income your savings at retirement depends on your financial knowledge. So it's not your education, how smart you are, or what your profession was, but it's how much do you understand about investing and where to put your money. and whether you understand the ideas behind compound interest. It was almost as if everyone who understood compound interest and wanted to get their money into the market early managed to come up with much greater retirement savings, and people only realized that towards the latter part of their degree. So I just think that I don't want to sort of tell a story of finance and economics changed my life, because it's not like that, right? But it's that the more that I studied about it, the more that I really became interested in these fields. I guess that's the same experience as yours, and I've just never looked back. I've never asked the what if question, because I just don't think that that's a question that's really that relevant to me anymore.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing modeling in finance, you said to me, like, at the end of the day, a job is a job. If I were to wake up one day and I were a doctor, like, I wouldn't mind that. I remember you. But you
neither
said
would I.
it's not what I'm passionate about, right?
Yeah.
Economics is what you're passionate about, and fair enough.
For sure.
That's what you want to do.
No, I completely agree. I was actually going to ask you, interestingly, tying this all back to the story that we were talking about before. Interesting, we talked about being a doctor and med school and everything, because we're in a pandemic right now. So I think this is going to be a really tough year for students and for graduates, and certainly for the broader industry as a whole. Particularly in Melbourne right now, which I know you are, and I think most of our audience is. What's your feelings on everything that's been happening, and how have you felt in regards to your work, and whether that's been affected in any way, or whether at your own company or other companies that you might have any connections with, whether there's any changes in the way they're looking at hiring, or are they taking a more conservative approach, or do you have any sort of pointers for our students?
Right. In terms of what, in how my experience at work has been, working from home for me personally is great. Like, I absolutely love it.
Same.
It's the best, because, if you want to take a break, there's no one to judge you around, and, you can do your work at your own pace. In terms of hiring though, to be honest, I haven't really been a part of the process during this time, so I can't really give any advice. But that being said, I think that reaching out now is more important than ever, because where companies had networking events that they would meet a lot of students and record down some students' names, they don't have that anymore. So they might be relying on people reaching out to them, or they might put an asterisk next to all the students that they've reached out to. And sometimes, oftentimes people are quite happy to just, take the time out of the day to introduce themselves and talk to them about their company, because they want applicants. Like, I know that from the student's point of view, you feel as though it's kind of their game, but in actual fact, they want you as much as you want them. If that kind of makes sense, right?
Of course, they want good applicants. Yeah,
exactly. So they want good applicants, and so don't be afraid to reach out and cold call, because, like I said, that's more important now than ever, because they don't have networking events or any of that stuff now to rely on.
All right, thanks, Damir. Well, we've got two questions here, which I'd just like to pass on from the students before we wrap up for today. So the first question from Rajit is, how important are academic scores, in your opinion, in terms of getting a job and going into industry?
So they're important for getting into the interview. And my opinion is that getting into the interview is harder than actually doing the interview.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Certainly.
So I think, that it's very important if you are applying to 50 different places and you're hoping for 50 interviews, because there is only one way, they can't meet every single applicant before the interview. They have to have some sort of filter criteria, and oftentimes they use academics as that. So I would say, as far as academics goes, it's pretty important to, do well at uni in order to get into the interview. That being said, if you reach out, if you make yourself known, as you said, Paul, and they see that, hang on, maybe this person is like street smart rather than uni smart, or if, they've been sick for half the year, fair enough, who wouldn't, just get pass marks for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like yes, it is very important, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah. I think something that I often talk to my students about, sort of as a piece of advice for applying, is that the stage of applying to interview is the most reductionist stage that they have, in a sense that
Mm,
that's the stage with the lowest probability of you making it across. It's sort of like, you know, you might have like a 1% chance of getting an interview, just based on the numbers. That is, if
mm,
everyone had an equal chance of getting through. Of course, if you're better, you have a higher chance and so on. But I'm saying in terms of the numbers, you might have like a 1 in 100 chance of getting an interview. But once you've gotten that interview, especially if you proceed through the rounds, by the time that you're in the final round interview, you probably have a better than 50-50 chance of getting the job, particularly if they're, you know, interviewing 20 candidates for 15 positions or something like that.
mm.
So I definitely agree with you, and I think it's important to sort of realize that marks might not matter at the end of the day, but they matter a whole lot when you don't have a lot to differentiate yourself with in terms of the other, you know, thousands of applicants that they're probably going to be getting.
Yeah.
Um,
And the other thing that I kind of wanted to say is that there is a lot of noise in the application process.
oh yeah,
So I know that for the investment banks, for example, they give a stack of resumes to the analysts and they say, okay, go through these. You have 5 people to choose for the interview. And they go, yep, yep, yep. And, you know, if they've chosen their 5, maybe they have shortlisted 7 and your resume is at the very bottom and they said, oh, like, what is the difference between this guy and these 7 people? I'm sure that someone else will interview them. Bang, rejection. Like there is a
yeah,
lot of noise, and yes, you do sometimes need luck on your side. So,
mm,
and it kind of goes back to what my mentor said to me: a rejection is not a reflection of you at all. There is a lot of noise in the process. So don't feel disheartened in any way if you do get rejected.
yeah. Thanks, Damir. And our last question for today from Benjamin. This is a question that I've been thinking about myself over the past couple of minutes, which is, what are the conversations you have when cold calling? Do you market yourself more, or do you ask more about the partner and their role in the firm and the firm itself, I guess?
Mm. The first 30 seconds is definitely introducing yourself, and trying to market yourself, because at the end of the day, if you don't do that in the first 30 seconds, they're going to zone out in the next 2 minutes. But for the firms that I really, really wanted to interview or intern at, which is Salter Brothers was one of them, I really did. I spent a bit of time on their website, looked at their most recent investments, and I said, hey, I'm actually I'm really interested in this investment that you made. Do you mind telling me
Mm.
why you did this? And
Yeah.
then, because at the end of the day, people love talking about themselves.
Mm.
And that's
Mm.
actually, that's something that I realized at uni as I was, getting wasted and talking to friends of friends of friends at these parties. People love talking about themselves. So you just keep on asking questions, and,
Yeah.
you know, in their eyes, they'll say, oh, hang on, this guy's really good at communicating. But in
Mm.
actual fact, they're the ones who've been communicating this whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a mix. Definitely got to market yourself, but at the same time, show some interest in what they do, because flattery goes a long way.
Oh, for sure.
Not direct flattery, but indirectly, they really enjoy you being interested in what they do. So
Mm.
that's definitely a good
Yeah.
piece of advice that I have.
No, I completely agree with that. That parallels almost completely my experience of interviews. In all of the interviews where I've been rejected, it's where I've been on the back foot, and they're peppering me with questions, and I feel like I have to sort of defend from all these different angles, these different questions that are coming at me. But in all the interviews where I've actually gotten the job, it started off like that, but at some point in the interview, I found a pivot where I could transition to talking about their work. And it could be something as simple as as just transitioning from a question that they asked me to saying, okay, well, not in that sort of attitude, but to talk about what their last project was like, or
Mm,
if it's in investment banking, talk about their last deal. Oh, it was a really good deal. It was a merger and acquisition transaction. Talk about what sort of work they did, and that was really interesting. I remember this interview I had at an investment bank. Actually, we ended up talking about guitar because one of the guys noticed from my resume that I play guitar, and he
yeah.
asked me about that, and I sort of asked back at him about his own playing and how long he's been playing, and we just ended up having a conversation for 20 minutes about playing guitar and sort of our favorite bands and what guitars we play and stuff like that. And something I usually like to say is that anytime that they're not asking the questions they're meant to be asking is good for you, because those questions are only bad for you. They can never be good for you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, certainly. Anyway, thanks, Damir, for coming today. It's greatly appreciated that you've decided to take time out on what I hope to be a very busy Saturday for you, answering questions and helping students out. Was there anything that you wanted to say to the students briefly before we finish up for today?
I think I've said everything that I wanted to say. I think the main thing is that, like I said, do not take rejection to heart. I absolutely understand what it feels like to apply 10 times, or in my case, like 80 times, and just get rejected again and again and again. But, don't see that as a reflection of yourself. Just look to constantly improve yourself, ask for feedback. And as I said, it takes 99 no's, but you'd only need one yes. That's all that you need. And you're there.
Fantastic. No, I completely agree. So thanks, Damir, for joining us today. Before we finish up, I just wanted to thank Georgina Clancy, who's done a fantastic job of moderating the debate for today, including shoring up questions and passing them over to me. So this broadcast was brought to us by Business School Broadcasting, which is a staff student-run club at Monash University. We're actually available on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram if you search up Business School Broadcasting. We produce all sorts of content, including all of the COVID Economy broadcasts. So if you're interested in participating in future COVID Economy broadcasts, either as an audience member or perhaps even a member of the production staff, please reach out to us and we're more than happy to let you in onto our production team. Thanks, everybody. Was there anything you wanted to add, Jason? I noticed that you sort of managed to pop in.
Yeah, I do apologize, everybody, for not being able to host today. I think I found my replacement. And I hope that you've all enjoyed this great opportunity to talk to Damir. Lots of students are very, very busy with their within-semester assessment. Definitely our Foundations of Finance students have so much on their plate. So, we do appreciate you taking your time to spend with us today. And just as I was listening through the entire conversation, the ideas that were firing through my head was, it would be wonderful if we could get our past alumni like Damir to come back, but actually organize a more formal program where they actually do mock interviews with students, and from their actual experience, simulate what they went through and have a particular program that way. I mean, that's pie in the sky, but automatically, I think that would be of enormous help to lots of students in helping them break through that initial fear factor in terms of going for interviews, and also to really help tidy and clean up their resume and their cover letter. Damir, thank you so much for coming today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Jason, Paul.
And thank you for the very kind words at the beginning.
No worries.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I've actually posted up a quick survey for everybody. If you could fill out that survey, it really helps us in terms of structuring the future COVID Economy broadcasts. We still have a few weeks of the semester left. So we've got a couple of broadcasts lined up that are fantastic, and I think you'll all be interested in attending those. So thank you very much for joining us this Saturday, and I wish you a fantastic rest of your weekend.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Bye.